So again, this little book is inspiration for this week as well as last week. And the idea is that we stay centered no matter what. And as I was, and again, it's based on the 12 powers, the idea that we each have powers within our soul that connect us to the powers of the universe. It's actually not a super new idea. James Freeman Clarke also expressed these ideas through the idea of self-culture. Now, James Freeman Clarke in 1941 founded the Unitarian Church in Boston. So a lot of these people, just like the Fillmores, were working and understanding at the same time that there's a more, right? And there's got to be a way to understand the more that we're all involved in. And James Freeman Clarke really recognized the idea of an active laity. So not somebody standing up here each week telling y'all what to do, but a joint effort in recognizing everything that is possible. And he called that an active laity, and a responsible congregation, a congregation of people that not only recognize responsibility for themselves, but also their responsibility as the whole to help each other. In 1871, he wrote a book called 10 Great Religions, and which was kind of revolutionary at the time because he took not just different Christian aspects, but from all over the world, and said as his thesis that God is in all of it and in everywhere, and spirit, and this is a quote, infinite and unlimited substance, that God is infinite and unlimited. So he and Charles Fillmore, I think if they would have sat down and had coffee, the world probably would have exploded in extra books because they would have had a lot to talk about. So this concept of self-culture or training or education is so similar. I just want to take some of Clarke's words today and mush them with Fillmore's ideas here. And that the care of which every man owes to himself is important. So the idea that we use these powers, or this idea of self-culture, and Freeman Clarke has a whole list of those that are similar to Fillmore's in that way, like all these categories in which we owe it to ourselves to grow and explore and find that power and unfold into the perfect nature, that nature that actually composes of our physical selves and our spiritual selves. That we recognize that in doing this work, we merge the two together so that we can unfold that full greatness in the here and now, and not think that one is totally separate from the other. Charles Fillmore, in his work, The Revealing Word, says, in divine mind, love is the power that binds, in divine harmony, the universe and everything in it, the great harmonizing principle known to man. In the divine mind, love is the power that binds everything. So the idea of love combines our humanness and our spiritualness into one, and that's the true expression. So the aspects of love is a big word, right? It's a huge word. All those aspects of love are those powers, are those aspects of self-culture. You know, all of it is a piece of understanding that greater love that pulls everything together. So the action of compassion and understanding of harmony are pieces of that love. And within both of those, you know, we can get really serious about that, right? Or we can enjoy it and recognize it as a joyful part of life, or we can recognize both. You know, I think sometimes when we start recognizing truly our spiritual nature, a lot of us get super serious. You know, we everything has to be, I don't know. I know the chant this morning was a little bit on the serious side, but that we can mix it up, that to have fun is also spiritual. You know, to laugh is as spiritual as understanding, the ins and the outs of nature. And it's our duty to grow in both. And I know I don't like to read to you often, but I'd like to use James Freeman Clarke's actual words when he says it's our duty to grow. He says, we have been placed here to grow, just as trees and flowers. The trees and the flowers grow unconsciously and by no effort of their own. We also grow unconsciously and are educated by circumstances. But we can also control those circumstances and direct the course of our life. We can educate ourselves. We can, by effort and thought, acquire knowledge, become accomplished, refine and purify our nature, develop our powers, strengthen our character. And because we can do this, we ought to do it. Use and improve or lose. Use and improve your muscles and your perceptions, or they will gradually but certainly fail. Use and improve your memory, your understanding, your judgment, or they will become feeble. Use and improve your conscience, or it grows torrid. Use and improve the powers which look up to an infinite truth, beauty, and goodness, and they lift you toward these. Let them sleep, and they cannot see this kingdom of God, this divine element in the universe. I do not believe that we are able to make ourselves anything we please, but we can make of ourselves what God pleases we can and should be. The germ of the great future is deposited in every soul. Every soul is a seed. It does not yet appear what it shall be. It is bare grain. Some of the seeds may be born beautiful roses. Others become modest violets. Some will tower into graceful elms, whose branches shall bend and wave in the summer air, and beneath whose far-reaching shadows the cattle shall stand resting in the hot days. Others shall become grasses for food, herbs for the cure of disease and solace of pain. To every seed, its own body. One shall be a rose in the garden, angry and brave. Another a buttercup or a sweet pea. And yet another shall open as a tender morning glory and give the poet a hint of a strain of sweet that it shall comfort all mourning mothers' hearts. And another be a daisy turned up by a Scottish plough, and in dying so be born again into an immortal song. Why should you envy your brother or sister because they are more wise, or have more genius, more business faculty than you? Why envy anyone because he or she is more fair, more brilliant? The buttercup does not envy the rose, nor the prairie vine complain because it is not a Virginia creeper. God has made everything beautiful in its time and place. Let it only be contented to unfold into that which it is intended to become. We grow only when we become more and more ourselves, our best selves, our truest selves, the selves that God made us to be. We do not grow when we try to be like this person or that, to strive for this person's wit or that person's scope, to become like this saint or that genius. The rose grows when it unfolds into a rose, not when it tries to become any other shrub or flower. The palm springs erect to heaven and grows up a palm. The vine creeps and hangs and swings in the air and pours fragrance on the breeze and grows into a vine. Thus God made each of us to be something, to have a real place, to do real work in this world, and that our own work, which no one else can do, if we are faithful to the inner light of our own conviction and to the daily duties which God sends to use, we shall grow. With glad surprise, we shall find ourselves becoming genuine in the garden of God. To become genuine in the garden of God. It's our duty to do this, but it's also our duty to recognize others' ability to do this and to not hamper these people or others because of our own prejudices and fears or whatever. And to recognize the beauty in the whole garden. Respect everything, and to not allow fear of differences or fear of the extreme diversity of the planet to wreck that garden space. You know, compassion is not limited to only those who are the same. So roses just don't have to be compassionate to roses. They can be compassionate to the weeping willow as well. It's interesting that in his story, he talks about the morning glories, at least for me, because my husband, when he was here, would not let me plant the morning glories, refused to let them in his garden, his flower garden. I like the smell of them. I like how they climb up. And he's like, no way do they go in the garden, because morning glories do have the ability to choke out the rest of the garden. They can just overrun everything. So instead of finding a way to compromise there, I just was not allowed to buy the seeds. Forget that. Don't even put them in there. Don't let them mix at all. And yet, if you research them, which I did while I was thinking about this, there are ways that they can coexist together beautifully with the rest of the flower garden. The thing is, as the gardener, you have to be patient. You have to be willing to do a little extra work. You have to build structures that allow the morning glory to be fully itself without impeding on another's ability to be themselves. So it's possible. It's possible. It just takes more work. It takes understanding, extra materials, maybe even making a broader plan on how to handle all of that diversity in one spot. And yet, we're being called to find ways to handle that diversity. And I'm using the garden as a metaphor, but that's, especially in this country, all the time. We have layers and layers and layers of diversity. And do we just say, well, those don't play nice together? I don't like that here because I have to do some extra work. In this case, we're talking about people. 33 states in our country right now have brought up 100 bills to curb the rights of transgender people. Most of those affect the youth, young people, ones that are just starting to figure out what kind of seed is actually there to begin with. So things like, and it's all over the place, you know, sports, healthcare, education. And no willingness on the part of some to even have structures to allow the seed to get planted. Our prejudices, our fear, our hate, our ignorance are in places of power. You know, and they're willing to not even fertilize. They're willing to place barriers so sunlight can't get through to the garden. part of the human garden. Yeah. So what do we do as other aspects of the garden? What can we do? In Erie, we have, I've read a bunch of labels like illegal thrown around for a group of youngsters, 12 and under, 7 to 12-year-olds that have no place else to go right now. And a group of people not, again, wanting to take away the fertilizer and the sunlight, to not even allow a growth to happen because they started off in a different garden. Immigrant children. You know, are we recognizing the prejudices, the racism, the hate, the Asian community, especially recently? I've read where there are people with white skin posting that they are willing to walk with those of Asian backgrounds from places like their own dwellings to grocery stores so they feel safe. First, why is that going on? But second, to know that there are little ways that we can make sure that the fertilizer is there and to show that diversity is available. It's a little thing. You know, I will walk with you to the store because I know you don't feel safe in your own garden right now. And yet those are little things that we can do. Some of the things I don't know what the answer is, but it's important to try to find the answers. Again, when it comes to our children, there was a young boy, 13 years old, named Alan Torlito, out this past week. And I know we've all heard the story. The young man is not here anymore. And again, there are some that say, well, he was out late and his mother didn't know where he was for 24 hours and he was around a bad group of people. And yet, I don't know how many years ago now, the mid-'80s, my husband had the same thing said about him. In fact, he got brought up against a judge because he was out for 36 hours without his mother knowing where he was, doing all kinds of things. And he built himself a handmade cannon and was shooting mailboxes and all kinds of other stuff. And yet, he lived to have children of his own, right? Because he lived in a place that said, that's what kids do. And that is not afforded to every kid, especially this young brown gentleman who is no longer here. We need to create gardens where it all can grow. Like the morning glories. We might not all agree, right? We might not all agree that they need to be in our garden, but we can certainly figure out ways for them all to thrive. It takes work. And you know what? Morning glories attract butterflies. So we find the silver lining on why it's worth it to make the work happen, to have them be in the same place at the same time. We are not just part of the garden, we are the gardener. We are the human part and we are the spiritual part. 1 Corinthians 13:1. What if I could speak all the languages of humans and even angels? If I did not love others, I would be nothing more than a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. Love, compassion, being a gardener is an action. It's an action. Feeling those things is great. And I think we all need to start there, actually learning how to feel those. But once we feel them, It's time to do something. Maybe we're the ones that said we'll walk with you to the grocery store. Maybe you're the one that picks up the phone and tells such and such a congressman to start thinking the right way. maybe you just be there for somebody else, or say that, you know what, everybody gets to be in the garden. Everybody. And everybody gets to show where their beauty is. And everybody gets the opportunity to do that. I'll close with prayer of understanding that you can also find in that little book. In this moment, we understand that there is a divine flow of life. At all times, God is with me. We are never alone, even when we feel lonely. We understand, and that empowers us to believe in ourselves and to believe in others, no matter what. When our desires are ripe, they bear fruit in abundance and beyond our wildest imaginings. We are not afraid of delays. We are not afraid of obstacles. In this silence of prayer, we recognize understanding, revealing that our own understanding comes in divine ways that are a blessing to me and to others, always. Amen.